Hey, welcome to my channel and my continued misadventures and the creation of a Franken tent. You never know how you might be able to cobble it together to get it to work.
Nobody's coming the other way.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel and my continued misadventures and the creation of Franken tent. Now, for those of you that have been following my channel, you know that I lost my tent in April. I had some luggage fall off my bike, and when that happened, it had my tent in it. And when I went back to get it, somebody had taken my luggage. So all I had left was the tent poles. And I was very partial to that tent. I got that tent at an REI garage sale. It was the REI Half Dome. I paid $40 for it. I fixed the tent poles and have been using it for almost 4 years. So that was very disappointing to lose that tent. It packed very small. It had a little bit of sentimental value for me. So that was quite sad. When I did lose it, I thought, well, I didn't know what to do with these poles. I thought maybe I could use them for another tent. So I held on to them. I got onto eBay and I thought maybe there was the possibility that someone was selling a nice tent that they hadn't been using and I could get it at a discounted price. I was wrong about that. People on eBay seem to think that their tents are worth way more than they are. And I could not find a good quality tent at a reasonable price. It was almost like buying a new tent. But what I did find is I found an REI Half Dome tent, which is what I had lost. And the ad was no poles. I was like, perfect, I have poles. So I went ahead and purchased that tent. I think with shipping and handling, it cost me $35 for this. So what ended up happening is this is a really old model of what I had, and these, the tent poles, did not work. So thankfully, someone from work had given me an old tent that they weren't using. So thanks, JJ, I appreciate it. It was a good marmot tent. Last weekend, I lost the tent poles to that marmot tent in, you guessed it, Saline Valley. I'm not sure what is wrong when I go to that area and it's hate for my tents, but then I ended up with a tent and fly with no poles. I have a tent here, or tent poles with no tent, and I have a tent with no poles and no fly. Now, none of this stuff really fits together very well, so I had to come up with a solution of using this tent with these poles, and what had led me to get the REI tent before was I had an old Eureka tent. This old Eureka tent.
Tonight. My tent has attracted a lot of ants, and I don't know why. I'm hoping that when it gets dark, they go back in their anthill.
That the zipper had quit working on. So for some reason, I decided to keep the tent fly. So now I have a fly, I have a tent, and I have poles, but none of them quite fit together. So this is what I did to get those put together and the creation of Franken tent. So if this is something that interests you on how to kind of piece tents together from missing pieces, broken pieces, and have something that works, go ahead and stick around and I'll show you how I was able to create Franken tent. All right, remember how I had said these tent poles didn't fit this tent? That's true, they still don't really fit it, but the biggest issue was my old tent poles for my other tent had this cross piece. And this cross piece was too long, so it was stretching the tent too much. So I was able just to cut this piece down, and now this tent, if I get off, don't stand on it, starts to fit, which is fantastic. So now I have this part of the tent fixed. So it's not as tight as it would be with the tent poles that are supposed to go with it, but to not have to replace a tent and to use the tent poles and tent that I have, I consider that a win. So I was able to get this put together. So let me finish buttoning up or putting the hooks on, and you can see how it looks like that. Okay, that's the tent hooked up to the modified poles. So I'm actually really happy to have this tent that I got on eBay for $35 with no poles and no fly, because honestly, it doesn't look like it was ever used. The zippers work really well. The material, it looks brand new, and it looks like, I think it was made in 2004. So whoever had this before must have lost parts to it and just tried to sell the tent itself. And being the fool I am, I bought it thinking I could use it. So yeah, now the trick with this is I had to get that fly from the Eureka tent to fit on this, and that wasn't easy. There was a trick to that because this was made for a different style of fly than what the Eureka is. So I'll show you what I did. The way the old tent is, it has these grommets, and the tent fly would hook under the tent pole. So I didn't have that option, but I had these clips from my old tent that I had taken off with these big rings. So I just hooked the rings onto the end of the tent. Now that's the anchor point, and I just clip it here. So that is my new way of connecting Franken tent fly. So it should be okay. And as you can see, it comes right down to the ground. Tent fly is on. Because it is oversized and it's a bit too big for the tent itself, it lays almost flat on the ground, which might be an issue for some ventilation. So we'll see how much condensation there is in there. It basically acts like a four-season tent fly setup with the fly going clear to the ground. So yeah, the overall lesson here with Franken tent and a mishmash of multiple different tents is that don't get rid of some of your gear like tents because you never know how you might be able to cobble it together to get it to work. I was getting ready to throw all of this stuff away when I lost the tent poles for the other tent. Now you might be thinking, why I didn't use these tent poles on the other tent. The other tent is quite a bit bigger and these tent poles aren't long enough. And then I had the tent poles from the Eureka tent, but it's a completely different style from 25 years ago, which isn't compatible with anything. So anyway, here's Franken tent. Again, lesson is keep stuff to get, keep leftover parts if you keep losing tent parts or if tent parts break, because you just never know how you might cobble it together. And I just did this for fun and to show you if you have tent parts in your house, how you might be able to make something of it. So thanks for watching Franken tent and my continued misadventures. Hopefully I will keep this tent together. I will do a better job of not losing luggage and strapping the tent poles to the bike. And because I cobbled this together, it's going to have a little bit more value to me. So I'll likely take more care of it. And it didn't cost me anything, which is good because I already had all the parts after losing the tent poles. So yeah, I am somewhere on section 4 of California Backcountry Discovery Route. The sun is setting. It's barely 4 o'clock, but I decided to call it a day. So thanks for watching. Get out, do some riding, do some camping, wear your tent out, hopefully don't lose any parts, and I will see you out there. I don't know what to think about this. It's kind of silly. Whatever.